ACSL, it's Rafe, and I'd like to invite you to take a little paddle with me today through the Sailor Sea.
Pachamama, que linda mi amor, Pachamama, que linda mi amor, Pachamama, que linda mi amor, Pachamama, que linda mi amor. Las estrellas bailan para mí, el sol y luna bailan para mí. Y la selva baila para mí, todas las plantas bailan para mí. Pachamama, qué linda mi amor, Pachamama, qué linda mi amor. Las mariposas bailan para mí, los picaflores bailan para mí, cielo a tierra bailan para mí, las galaxias bailan para mí. Pachamama, qué rico mi amor, Pachamama, qué rico mi amor, Pacha. Toda la vida bailan para mí, toda familia bailan para mí, toda la vida bailan para mí, toda familia bailan para mí, las estrellas bailan para mí, el sol y luna bailan para mí, toda la selva baila para mí. Todas las plantas bailan para mí, toda familia, toda familia, bailando ya, bailando ya, bailando ya, bailando ya, bailando.
I believe you're watching, so we loved it. Thank you so much. I'm really grateful. I learned about Pachamama on it was my first trip that I led to Peru many, many years ago. And after a while, I was going to Peru once or twice a year, wasn't I, Arnie? I was like going a lot. Yeah, it was the ayahuasca, anyway. It's legal there. And, but even before that, I mean, it wasn't that, although I enjoyed my first time with ayahuasca. What I really got from the Quechua people was this whole idea that the earth is alive. The Quechua people don't speak Spanish. They are the native indigenous people to the high Andes. And they make real. Like they don't believe in something, they have faith in something. I guess that's why I got off on this whole idea of believing and having faith. Faith is what takes you over, and because when you have filled a faith, that faith works you. Jesus said to a woman who was healed, it's your faith that healed you. It's your faith that made this happen. So they have faith in the power of the earth to support life. They have faith in the power of the earth to provide for creation, and they experience themselves as just part of creation, not separate, not better than, but part of the big global scheme of things. And a lot of indigenous people do. But it was nice to be at that very high altitude. And by the way, high altitude is one of the ways to have a more unitive consciousness. So I can imagine that Benito, my first shaman, who lived at 16,000 feet. Now think about 16,000 feet, where that is in relationship to Mount Rainier. They lived there. And he had faith that this system of creation was there to provide for creation. I had great faith in it. And I guess that faith was sort of awakened in me too. But what I realize is that as I'm now almost coming full circle, I realize that if I wake up, I can't say that anything isn't a part of God. Too much, there is only one original sin, and that's the belief in separation. The original sin was the belief in separation, our belief in separation from our God, from each other, from the earth, and all conflict comes from that. If we could heal that sense of separation, if we could heal that sense of it's us and them, if we could heal the sense of, well, this is just the earth, what's it matter? Well, guess what? We've only got a few years to figure out it matters what we do to this earth. If we could heal the sense of separation from ourself and our God, so much of what we deal with would dissolve. So it's worth the time in prayer and meditation. It's worth the time to read spiritual books. It's worth the time to walk the earth. It's worth it, because other things seem to fall into place. Jesus said it this way: seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all shall be added. And he also said, the kingdom, don't go looking for it in the sky. You're not going to find it. And if it was up there, the birds would get there before you. So what? He said, the kingdom of heaven is right where you are. And actually, the word that he used for kingdom of heaven is within us. We've translated it within, but the same word could mean amongst. So it's not only in us, but it's amongst us. It's not just in us and we're the kingdom of heaven, where we've got God and everything else is lost. No, everything is that kingdom, that realm of the divine. And Benito knew that. And because Benito knew that, he could use that. So back to 16,000 feet. That takes some survival skills. And yet they survived well. I don't know how, Benito couldn't remember how old he was. But his sons looked plenty old. Benito was preserved. I mean, he still looked like an ageless, beautiful being. So let me tell you the story of how I became enamored with Benito. We stayed at a place the first time at a place called the Wilcatica, and this was being built by a woman who had immigrated to Peru because she really enjoyed it, and she liked the Quechua people. And so she bought I'd say maybe an acre and a half, maybe 2 acres, not very much. And she built a little house there, and then she started plotting land and a garden around the tree that she bought the property for, because it was a very old tree. They thought it had to be at least 500 to 600 years old. And some thought maybe even older. And she loved that tree, so she planned everything around that tree. And people would come, and because it was so old, they would ask the tree for a blessing, and they'd ask the tree for a blessing. And what she noticed is after a while, the tree started looking not so healthy. The leaves weren't as green. They weren't as shiny. It wasn't sprouting new branches every year. It wasn't dying, but it wasn't thriving either. And so she thought maybe it's because she built houses too close to the tree, that maybe, well, she actually brought rooms because she was creating a hotel by that time. Maybe she got too close to the tree and she was keeping the sun from it, or maybe it damaged the roots or whatever. So she brought in Benito. And Benito said, I've never healed a tree before. Llamas and people, but... And by the way, when the shaman is over a village, they are the police, they are the doctor, they are the marriage counselor, they are the priest, they are the everything. So he was the everything for his village. And she brought him in and said, what about this tree? He says, I don't know, I've never done a tree before. But he sat there with the tree, just sat there with the tree, because he's practicing oneness. And I've talked about this before. I've had people talk to trees, and trees talk. Trees talk. Oh, they talk. They're chattery. Actually, if you get close to one and it starts talking, it's just, you better just have a notebook. So he's sitting there listening to the tree, tuning into the tree, and pretty soon he says, oh, too much taking, too much taking, too much taking. People kept asking for things from the tree. They asked for blessings from the tree. They would take some of the fruit that would fall from the tree. They'd take the leaves from the tree. They would touch the tree. This taking. He says, no giving, giving, giving. And the tree is getting decimated by this continual taking and not giving back. Sounds like some relationships, doesn't it? Yes. Some jobs. Some experiences of life. This, as above, so below. The microcosm and the macrocosm are the same. What's happening in one area of your life is probably happening in another area of your life. And so what happened after that is that the woman who owns the property put some stones around the tree and said, don't go closer than this. And if you want to ask for a blessing, you have to give the tree something first. Give it some water, give it some sugar, give it praise, give it blessings, give it love, and then ask. Which, by the way, is how I got introduced. And the woman who owned the property, the Wilkatika, then introduced the Quechua principle of Inti. They live by Inti. And Inti basically means, I give now, you give later. And this applies to their neighbors and to the earth. So if someone's crops are being harvested, all the neighbors go over and help harvest the crops, because they know the next time their crops need to be harvested, their neighbors will come and visit them. And so they're always flowing into each other, and that's how they can get by with what would seem like to us so little. And that they still have time to play and make some sort of strange alcoholic drink. It wasn't pisco. But I say strange, I never had some, because the guide I was with said you wouldn't like it. But it's very strong, and they make it out of something that they've grown. And if they've just brewed a batch, they will put a flag outside their home which says, guess what, I've got a new batch, you can come in and have some. So we were driving through the villages, and there'd be these flags hanging out. And she said, yep, that's the local tavern tonight. Go to that place. We never did. Just letting you know. So what Benito would do to do his healing work is he would perform something called a despacho. It's not gazpacho, it's despacho. I kept thinking, is this like a food, what? Despacho. And it's a ceremony where you offer something important to you that you love and you value, and you give it to the earth. And then you ask for a blessing from the earth. But first you give. First you give out. Inti. And I forgot to bring it, but I actually bought, one of the ways that they survive is that they sell very small things for a whole lot of money. So I bought this woven piece of wool, about this big, and he says, oh yeah, put this down anywhere at your altar. So, he said it through an interpreter. This is the altar. So I forgot to bring my altar with me, but I thought, wow. Anyway, but it was supporting Benito and the village. Anyway, so he'd create an altar, and then he would put on the altar something that's burnable, like some piece of paper. Had to be very burnable. And then he would make a beautiful, wonderful, almost like a flower mandala with the prettiest things that he could find. And then he would put the things that mattered the most to him. So he and his brothers would put things that mattered to them, and you got to figure out what mattered to them. Sugar, gum, candy, tobacco, coca leaves. And then he would give us, because coca leaves are so valued there, he would give us coca leaves, and we would blow on them our wishes, and then give them into this beautiful altar that he's creating. And then he would fold it up nicely and take it to a fire that had been already prepared and put it on the fire. And the smoke was then sacred smoke. If you got blasted by it, it was a double blessing. So I tried to interpret it that way. And then they believed that whatever you asked for, because you had first given, you would receive. When I first met him, what he does is coca readings. So he takes coca leaves and just throws them, kind of like, I don't know, people have been reading fortunes forever. So he'd throw these coca leaves and read stuff. I don't remember any of it, really. But I do remember he said, you want something healed? And I said, yeah, my hand. I was getting arthritis like my mother had arthritis. So Mama got arthritis, Kathy gets arthritis. It's like one of those things. And my knuckles were getting swollen. And sometimes I would wake up and it was hard to grip anything. And it was just getting uncomfortable. And this is my right hand. And so I was uncomfortable. And he says, oh, it'll be gone. I'm like, right, fine. Which brings us back to faith. He didn't believe it would be gone. He had faith it would be gone. Now, he didn't have faith in himself. He had faith in the mother. He had faith in creation. He had faith in that which sustains creation. And that faith is what, the next day, my hand was different, and it's never gone back to where it was. It's that faith. Now, how did he have that faith? Probably because he had a deep spiritual practice. There's not a lot to do at 16,000 feet. iPhones didn't even work. Do you know how they got him? Do you know how they would get him to come and visit at the Wilkatika, which was down at 11,000 feet? So it's quite a hike down and a hike back up. They would contact him by just calling his name, and he would show up. Because did I tell you cell phones don't work at 16,000 feet? Not there, not where they are, not in the Andes. So if the guy knows when to show up, he probably knows what's working. I'm going to trust a guy that can show up when you need him. So I had faith. I had faith that he had faith. So if I hadn't had faith that he had faith, and that he had faith in the earth, I probably wouldn't have had the healing. It does take two. It does take two. Which is the reasons why practitioners take a while to go through their training. It's like they don't need to read more. They need to and have been working on that faith in the invisible to create form in a way that is perfect. That's what they do. So, one of the ways that we were also giving to the earth is that not only did we give and give of something that we were interested in that was burnable, we also did it with blessings. So we gave thanks first. And if you think about the way Jesus did it, according to the way that he fed the 5,000, is that he looked up and he gave thanks. Thanks for us, it's I'll be thankful after. No, be thankful before. That's what Benito was doing, and that's what he had us do in this sacred ceremony. So this is very similar to ancient religions all over the world. What I try to study is what's common, what has worked through centuries and millennia. And if you used to go to an ancient temple, you didn't just get blessed. You first had to offer something that was important to you out of gratitude. You offered out of gratitude, and then you received the blessing. So Emerson called this the law of compensation. As you give, you shall receive. Einstein said, whatever you give out must circle back to you. And at CBEC, we tried this, because at CBEC, there were, not last year, but the year before, maybe 2 years before, because we've had fire season for so many years. Oof. But I remember the fires were devastating the western coast of California. And so I called out to all the practitioners, and we had a water despacho. Because fire ceremony didn't seem right to ask for the fire to be extinguished. And B, CBEC would not have let us have an open fire because it was too dry. So I said, water, why not? Or liquid. So I asked everybody to bring their favorite liquid. I took a Diet Coke. Some people had theirs in a sack. Don't know what it was, don't care. But you were supposed to bring something that you valued. So it's not you just give it away, it's what you value. What is it? What is a small, and it's not a lot of, it's almost like homeopathy in the different direction. A tiny bit of the good you want to receive. So you give something good and you give it with thanks. So we formed a circle of us, of the practitioners, and then in the middle we had a circle that was to receive the liquid. And one by one, people would go and they'd touch the earth and they'd give thanks for everything that was happening in their lives and how good their life was. And then they'd give a little bit of the liquid that they loved. And then collectively, we asked for rain. And I had to tell the practitioners the next day. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was the next day. In the evening, when we had our evening prayers, that I was hearing from the ministers that are in that area that I was in connection with that the weather changed. There was no rain in the forecast, and the rains were coming down. See, Mama Earth can do a lot. Are we willing to A, give thanks, B, appreciate her power? I'm saying her because we use him a lot, so her, him. They call it Pachamama, so I'll call it Mama. Because mamas support and sustain and care for. And are we willing to give first, Inti? And then are we willing to ask and ask big? Not having arthritis was asking big. Because I saw what it did to my mother, so I actually had that in my mind. Well, this is what happens to you when you get a certain age, Kathianne. It's hereditary. Your mom had it, you'll get over it, you'll just work through it. No, what if you don't have to work through it? Ask big. And after this service is over, go home and do this. Or if you brought some liquid, we'll do a ceremony out in this area of the land because I want to be able to touch the land, not just a container, but actually let it go into the land. If you didn't bring any liquid, we've got water. Pachamama likes water. And we've got little cups, paper, pour some on. Tim and I do this once in a while on our property to just honor that we have, we pay the taxes on it, but it's really Mama Earth's. We just pay taxes so that we can have roads and fire people and policemen at the right time. But to honor the earth, to honor that which sustains us is so important. And to ask. To ask. Now, is it any different to ask Mother Earth than it is to pray? No, because it's all God. There's only one. There's only one of us, and yet we will find some forms that appeal to us more. Just like we will find some types of music that appeal to us more. We will find some authors that appeal to us more than other authors, but it's all one. So for some people, this earth-based spirituality really works for them. It really works for Tim. He would rather do a despacho than sit and meditate with his wife. But boy, will he build a fire and want a fire? He's want to sit on the earth and put your hand on the ground? And that's because Benito said to Tim, "Oh, Pachamama is pleased with you." And he's like worn that as a little badge of honor forever. Well, so, bet she's pleased with everybody. But I don't say that. So, let's just, before the ceremony, let's still discover our inner ceremony. Before the outer ceremony, let's do the inner ceremony. And I'd love for you to plant your feet on the ground, or the floor as much as possible, and know that even though you're not on the ground, gravity is connecting you to the earth. And just say thank you. In your heart of hearts, say thank you for the air that is supplied by the earth, because she brings all of that oxygen, hydrogen, and carbon monoxide, hugs it to her so that we may breathe and that plants may breathe. Thank the earth for what comes out of it in the form of plants that feed us and feed the animals. Give thanks for the songbirds. Give thanks. Just let your mind go wild with what you can give thanks for, knowing that it is the earth that sustains those things and supplies those things. And now take a deep breath and ask yourself, what would you be willing to give the Divine Mother? What would you be willing to give Pachamama? Today or the next day, would you be willing to just share a little bit of something that you love? Just put it on the ground, and it's got to be biodegradable and not plastic. What would you share? What can you share? What will you share? And now, what would you ask for? The thing I learned from Benito is that they ask for the smallest and the greatest of things. Benito would ask for a crop. He would ask that his llamas be healed. He would ask for the offspring of his llamas and his chickens. He would ask for all of those things, and he would also ask for the healings of his tribe. He would ask for the healings of crazy visitors like me. What are you asking for? It's all the circulation of life. It's all the circulation of life. Sometimes when we want to be holy, we don't want to ask. And yet asking should be like breathing. We give, we receive. We give, we receive. We give, we receive. Breath in, breath out, breath in, breath out. The blood flows, our digestion processes, and we can ask and give and ask and give as though that were the way things worked. What will you ask for? And know that it's all holy, holy, holy. It's all holy. It's all holy. It's all holy because we are whole. And so it is.